The ceremonial blade whistled through the air toward Queen Lyrelith's throat. Captain Sarah Chen's body moved before her mind processed the threat, muscle memory from a dozen battlefields overriding diplomatic protocol. Her armored shoulders slammed into the assassin's chest, sending him sprawling across the marble floor of the Zephyrian throne room. The weapon clattered away as Sarah's boot found the attacker's wrist. The snap of bone echoed through the sudden silence. Royal guards rushed forward, but Sarah had already secured the threat, her sidearm drawn and trained on the writhing figure. "Medical team to the throne room," she barked into her comm unit, scanning for additional threats. The elaborate ceremony celebrating the trade agreement between Earth and Zephyr Prime had erupted into chaos. Ambassadors cowered behind ornate pillars, while Zephyrian nobles pressed themselves against the walls. Queen Lyrelith hadn't moved. The tall, ethereal monarch stood frozen on her crystal throne, her pale blue skin almost translucent in the chamber's filtered light. Her large, dark eyes fixed on Sarah with an expression the human couldn't interpret. Fear, shock, something else entirely? "Your Majesty, are you injured?" Sarah kept her weapon ready while medical personnel tended to the unconscious assassin. Protocol demanded she maintain distance from foreign royalty, but her protective instinct screamed to check the queen for wounds. The silence stretched like a taut wire. Zephyrian courtiers whispered among themselves in their musical language, their tone urgent and somehow excited. Sarah's translator struggled with the overlapping conversations, catching fragments about customs and binding and ancient laws. Ambassador Harrison emerged from behind a pillar, his face pale beneath his formal diplomatic attire. "Captain Chen, perhaps you should—" "The ceremony is concluded," Queen Lyrelith said, her voice carrying clearly across the vast chamber. Her words carried weight, finality. The whispering stopped instantly. "Clear the hall. All except the human warrior." Sarah's training warred with confusion. The Queen's tone suggested command, not gratitude. The way the Zephyrian nobles bowed deeply before filing out felt more like witnessing a sacred ritual than a security incident. "Ma'am, I should escort you to a secure location," Sarah said as the last courtier disappeared, "until we determine if this was an isolated attack." "You have claimed the right of protection through combat," Queen Lyrelith interrupted. Rising from her throne, at nearly 7 feet tall, she towered over Sarah, but something in her posture suggested vulnerability rather than dominance. "In our oldest laws, such an act before the royal court constitutes a marriage proposal." The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. What?" "Your Majesty, I was doing my job. Protecting a diplomatic ally is— You struck down my would-be killer with your body, not your weapon." The Queen descended the steps slowly, her flowing robes rustling against the crystal. "You placed yourself between death and my life. According to Zephyrian law, you have declared your intent to become my bonded mate." Sarah's mouth went dry. The assassin's attack had happened so fast, pure instinct driving her actions. She tackled him because her sidearm was holstered, because using her body was faster than drawing a weapon. The thought that her split-second decision could be interpreted as, "There must be some mistake," Sarah stammered. "I'm a security officer. I don't know your customs. Surely you can explain to your people that this was a misunderstanding." Queen Lyrelith stopped 3 feet away, close enough that Sarah could see the intricate silver markings along her temples pulse with a soft light. "The law is absolute. It has governed our people for 3,000 years. To reject a bonding proposal made through combat is to declare the protector unworthy of life itself." The weight of the situation crashed down on Sarah. Not only had she accidentally proposed marriage to an alien queen, but refusing would apparently be a death sentence. Her mind raced through diplomatic protocols, searching for any guidance on accidentally becoming engaged to foreign royalty. "What does this mean exactly?" Sarah asked, forcing her voice to remain steady. If we proceed with this misunderstanding, what would be expected?" The Queen's expression softened slightly, though her posture remained rigid. "A bonding ceremony within 3 solar cycles. The joining of our bloodlines would create unprecedented political implications. Earth and Zephyr Prime would become sister worlds, bound by marriage law rather than mere treaty. Sarah thought of the months of careful negotiations that had led to today's trade agreement, the delicate balance of power in this sector of space, the fact that her impulsive protection of the Queen had just accidentally proposed the most significant political alliance in recent galactic history. "And if I refuse?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "Ancient law demands death for false proposals." But Queen Lyreleth paused, her dark eyes studying Sarah's face. "That same law has never been tested by an outsider who acted without knowledge. We are in uncharted territory, Captain Chen." The ceremonial dagger tore through the air toward Queen Lyreleth's exposed throat. Sarah's body moved on pure training, her shoulder connecting with the assassin's torso before conscious thought could intervene. She felt ribs crack under the impact as they both crashed to the polished marble floor. Sarah rolled away from the falling blade, her hand instinctively moving to her sidearm. The attacker groaned, clutching his side where her armored shoulder had struck. Blood seeped between his fingers, staining his ceremonial robes. She kept her weapon trained on him while scanning the ornate throne room for additional threats. "Secure the perimeter," she commanded into her comm unit, her voice cutting through the shocked gasps of diplomats and nobles. "Lock down all entrances. This is now a restricted zone." Earth's ambassador and the Zephyrian delegation pressed themselves against the crystal walls, their carefully planned ceremony dissolving into chaos. Sarah's eyes swept the crowd, cataloging faces and positions, searching for anyone else who might pose a threat to the Queen. But when she looked back at the throne, Queen Lyreleth hadn't moved. The towering monarch stood motionless, her pale blue skin almost luminescent in the chamber's ethereal lighting. Her large, dark eyes were fixed on Sarah with an intensity that made the human soldier's skin prickle with unease. "Your Majesty, are you injured?" Sarah asked, maintaining her protective stance over the subdued assassin. Royal guards were finally responding, their formation weapons trained on the downed attacker, but their movement seemed oddly ceremonial rather than urgent. The Queen didn't respond. Around the chamber, Zephyria nobles began murmuring in their melodic language, their tones carrying excitement rather than alarm. Sarah's universal translator caught fragments: ancient rite, combat proposal, binding witnessed. Sarah's stomach dropped. "Combat proposal? Ma'am, we need to move you to a secure location," Sarah pressed, fighting the growing certainty that something had gone terribly wrong beyond the assassination attempt. "Clear the hall," Queen Lyreleth commanded, her voice resonating with absolute authority, "all except the human warrior who has claimed protection rights." The Zephyrian nobles bowed deeply, their movements synchronized and reverent. Even Ambassador Harrison seemed to understand the gravity of whatever was happening, his face pale as he followed the exodus from the throne room. Sarah found herself alone with the Queen, the unconscious assassin, and a handful of royal guards who had positioned themselves at the chamber's exits. The silence felt heavy, pregnant with implications she didn't understand. "Captain Chen," Queen Lyreleth said, descending the crystal steps of her throne. Her 7-foot frame moved with fluid grace, her elaborate robes flowing like liquid starlight. "You have performed the ritual of blood claiming before my court. I prevented an assassination," Sarah corrected, though dread was building in her chest. "It's my duty to protect allied heads of state. You struck down my attacker with your body rather than your weapon." The Queen stopped 6 feet away, close enough that Sarah could see the intricate silver patterns along her temples pulsing with soft light. "In Zephyrian law, this constitutes a formal marriage proposal." The words hit Sarah like a stun blast. "A what?" "The ritual of blood claiming is our oldest bonding tradition," Queen Lyreleth explained, her voice carefully controlled. "When a warrior defeats a threat to royal life through personal combat, placing their body at risk for the sovereign's protection, they declare their intent to become mate and consort." Sarah's mind reeled. Her split-second decision to tackle the assassin, driven by pure protective instinct, had accidentally triggered an ancient marriage ritual. "Your Majesty, I had no knowledge of your customs. Surely you can explain to your people that this was a misunderstanding." The Queen's expression remained unreadable. "The law recognizes no distinction between intentional and accidental proposals. The ritual has been witnessed by the full court. According to our most sacred texts, to reject such a claim is to declare the warrior unworthy of life, death. Sarah's training kept her voice steady despite the shock. For refusing a marriage proposal? For making a false claim of willingness to die for royal blood? Queen Lyrillith's dark eyes seemed to peer into Sarah's soul. Our ancestors believed that such deception warranted the ultimate punishment. Sarah forced herself to think tactically. The political implications were staggering. Earth and Zephyr Prime had spent months negotiating their trade agreement. An accidental royal marriage proposal could either strengthen those bonds beyond imagination or destroy them entirely. What would this bonding entail, she asked. A ceremony within 3 solar cycles. The joining would make Earth and Zephyr political sister worlds, bound by blood law rather than mere treaty. You would become Queen Consort, with all the authority and responsibility that title carries. The magnitude of the situation crushed down on Sarah. Her protective instincts had accidentally created the most significant political alliance in galactic history. Queen Lyrillith stepped closer, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. However, Captain Chen, you are the first outsider to trigger the blood-claiming ritual. Our laws say nothing about proposals made in ignorance by those not bound to our customs. Sarah stared into the alien queen's eyes, watching the silver patterns along her temples pulse faster. She was trapped between ancient law and modern diplomacy, her survival and the future of 2 worlds hanging on a decision she'd made in half a second. The weight of Queen Lyrillith's words settled over Sarah like a lead blanket. 3 solar cycles to decide between marriage to an alien monarch or death under ancient law. The absurdity of the situation warred with its deadly seriousness. "Your Majesty," Sarah said carefully, "what would happen if we proceeded with this bonding?" "You would become Queen Consort of Zephyr Prime," Lyrillith replied, her silver temple markings pulsing in a steady rhythm. "Earth would become our sister world through marriage bond rather than treaty. Your people would gain access to our most advanced technologies, our trade routes, our military protection." Sarah's tactical mind processed the implications. Zephyr Prime controlled 3 solar systems and possessed quantum drive technology that Earth could only dream of. A marriage alliance would elevate humanity's status in galactic politics beyond anything achievable through normal diplomacy. And if I refuse, ancient law demands execution for false blood claims. The Queen's voice carried no malice, only resigned certainty. Though perhaps we could find another interpretation, such as... Queen Lyrillith moved closer, her towering frame surprisingly graceful. "You acted without knowledge of our customs. The ritual has few precedents involving outsiders. Perhaps we could argue that incomplete understanding voids the binding." Sarah caught the hesitation in the Queen's voice. "But you don't believe that would work. The High Council values tradition above all else. They would likely declare that ignorance cannot excuse false claims made before the royal court." Lyrillith's dark eyes met Sarah's. "Your life would remain forfeit." The sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the chamber. Ambassador Harrison appeared at the main entrance, flanked by the Zephyrian High Council members. Their ornate robes rustled as they filed into the throne room, their faces grave. "Your Majesty," the lead counselor spoke, his voice carrying formal authority. "We have convened to address the blood-claiming ritual performed by the human warrior." Queen Lyrillith straightened, her regal bearing returning. "Counselor Vexahay, what is your judgment?" "The ritual was witnessed by the full court," Vexahay replied, his pale blue skin marked with the deep silver patterns of age and authority. "The law is clear. The human has claimed blood protection rights. The binding must proceed, or the false claimant must face judgment." Sarah stepped forward. "Counselor, I acted without knowledge of your customs. In human culture, protecting others is simply duty, not a marriage proposal. Ignorance does not void sacred law." Another counselor interjected. "The ritual has been completed. The blood claim is binding." Ambassador Harrison cleared his throat nervously. "Perhaps there's room for diplomatic interpretation." "There is no interpretation," Counselor Vexhai cut him off. "The warrior must choose. Bonding ceremony within 3 cycles, or trial for false claiming." Her split-second decision to save the Queen had created a diplomatic crisis with galactic implications. Earth's relationship with Zephyr Prime hung in the balance, along with her own life. "What does the trial entail?" she asked. "Combat against our champion," Vex High explained. "Death is the only verdict for false claimants." Sarah's military training clicked into focus. Combat, she understood. Diplomacy was proving far more treacherous than any battlefield. And the bonding ceremony? 3 days hence, Queen Lyrelith answered before the council could respond. "Full royal honors. You would swear sacred oaths to protect our people as your own." Sarah looked around the chamber, taking in the expectant faces of the council, the nervous expression of Ambassador Harrison, and the unreadable gaze of Queen Lyrelith. 2 worlds waited for her decision. "I need time to consider," she said. "1 solar cycle," Counselor Vexhay declared. "Then you must choose your path." As the council filed out, Sarah found herself again alone with Queen Lyrelith. The monarch approached slowly, her expression softening for the first time. "Captain Chen," she said quietly, "I want you to know that regardless of your decision, your actions today saved my life. I am grateful. Just doing my job, Your Majesty." "Perhaps. But you should know that if you choose the bonding, it would not be unpleasant. Our peoples could achieve great things together." Sarah studied the alien queen's face, searching for hidden meanings. The fate of 2 civilizations might rest on her next words. The weight of decision pressed against Sarah's chest as she stood in her temporary quarters aboard the diplomatic vessel. 1 solar cycle. Less than 18 Earth hours to choose between marriage to an alien queen or trial by combat against a Zephyrian champion. Ambassador Harrison paced beside the viewport showing Zephyr Prime's triple moons. "This is unprecedented, Captain. Earth Diplomatic Corps has no protocols for accidental royal marriage proposals." "What are my odds in the trial?" Sarah asked, checking her sidearm's power cell out of habit. "Unknown. Zephyrian champions are genetically enhanced warriors, bred for combat excellence. Their bone density is 3 times human normal. Their reaction speed," Harrison trailed off, reading Sarah's expression. "You're actually considering fighting rather than accepting the marriage?" "I'm considering all options." Sarah moved to the communications console. "I need to speak with Earth Command. The quantum relay is experiencing solar interference. We're cut off for another 6 hours. Sarah cursed under her breath. The Zephyrian Council had chosen their timing perfectly. No chance for consultation with Earth's leadership. No opportunity for diplomatic intervention from home. A soft chime announced an incoming message. Queen Lyrelith's image appeared on the hologram projector, her silver temple markings flickering into stress patterns. "Captain Chen, I must speak freely while the Council cannot monitor our communications." The Queen's voice carried urgency. "There are factors you should consider before making your choice." "I'm listening, Your Majesty." "The assassination attempt was not random. Intelligence suggests it was orchestrated by the Hegemony Coalition to prevent our alliance with Earth. If you choose trial by combat and lose, they win. Our worlds remain separated, vulnerable." Sarah's tactical mind processed this new information. The Hegemony controlled 4 star systems and viewed the Earth-Zephyr alliance as a threat to their expansion plans. Eliminating the human protector would send a clear message about the consequences of opposing them. And if I accept the bonding, the marriage would create an unbreakable political alliance. But more than that, Queen Lyrelith paused, her expression conflicted. "There are aspects of Zephyrian bonding you do not understand, such as..." "The ceremony involves a neural link. Our minds would be permanently connected, allowing us to share thoughts, emotions, memories. We would truly become one being in 2 bodies. Sarah felt her blood chill. Mental bonding went far beyond political marriage. It was a fundamental alteration of her humanity. Can the link be severed? Never. Death is the only separation once the bonding is complete. Queen Lyrelith's image flickered as she leaned closer to her own communication device. "I wanted you to understand the full scope of your choice." The connection ended, leaving Sarah staring at empty air. Neural bonding with an alien mind versus death in combat against a genetically enhanced warrior. Neither option offered survival, as the person she'd been this morning, Ambassador Harrison had gone pale. "Captain, you cannot possibly be considering—" "I'm considering my duty," Sarah interrupted. "To Earth, to the diplomatic mission, to our new allies. Your duty doesn't require you to sacrifice your humanity, doesn't it?" Sarah moved to the viewport, watching Zephyr Prime's swirling cloud formations. "If I die in combat, the hegemony wins. Our alliance crumbles. The assassination was just the opening move in a larger game. And if you accept the bonding, Earth gains the most powerful ally in this sector of space. The hegemony loses strategic advantage. Humanity survives and thrives." Harrison shook his head. "At the cost of your individual identity, maybe." Sarah touched the transparent aluminum, feeling the cold seep through her fingertips. "Or maybe I become something more than either human or Zephyrian." This one bore the seal of the Zephyrian High Council. "Captain Chen!" Counselor Vexhi's stern face appeared in the hologram. "We require your decision within 1/4 solar cycle. The champion awaits, and the bonding altar has been prepared. Choose wisely." Sarah squared her shoulders, military bearing overriding her inner turmoil. The decision would defy not just her fate, but the future relationship between two species. "Ambassador," she said, "record my response to the council." Harrison activated the recording device with trembling hands. Sarah faced the camera, her voice steady and clear. The royal bonding chamber gleamed with crystalline formations that captured and refracted Zephyr Prime's triple moonlight into dancing patterns across the walls. Sarah stood at the altar's edge, wearing ceremonial robes that felt alien against her skin. The High Council formed a semicircle around the sacred space, their faces grave with the weight of witnessing a ritual that would bind two worlds. Queen Lyrelith approached from the chamber's far end, her 7-foot frame draped in flowing silver that seemed to move of its own accord. The intricate crown upon her head caught the crystal light, sending rainbow fragments dancing across her pale blue skin. Her dark eyes found Sarah's across the distance, and for a moment, uncertainty flickered in their depths. "Captain Chen is chosen bonding over trial," Counselor Vexhi announced to the assembled witnesses. "Let it be recorded that she accepts the sacred union of mind and spirit with our sovereign." The decision had torn at Sarah's core through the sleepless night cycle. She'd weighed duty against personal autonomy, calculating political advantages against the loss of her individual identity. In the end, the mathematics were brutal but clear. Her sacrifice could elevate humanity's standing in galactic politics beyond anything achievable through normal diplomacy. "The neural bonding is irreversible," Queen Lyrelith said as she reached the altar. "Once our minds touch, we become one consciousness in two bodies. Are you certain this is your choice?" Sarah met the alien queen's gaze steadily. "I understand the consequences, Your Majesty. For Earth, for Zephyr Prime, for both our peoples." Queen Lyrelith nodded solemnly, though Sarah caught a flicker of something else in her expression. Regret? Relief? The silver patterns along the queen's temples pulsed faster, betraying emotional turmoil beneath her regal composure. Counselor Vexhi began the ritual recitation in ancient Zephyrian, his voice echoing off the crystal walls. The words were beautiful and haunting, speaking of unity across species, of consciousness shared between souls. Sarah's translator struggled with the archaic phrasing, but the meaning was clear. This ceremony would fundamentally alter who she was. "Place your hands upon the bonding crystal," Queen Lyrelith instructed, gesturing to a magnificent formation of pure white stone that seemed to pulse with inner light. Sarah pressed her palms against the crystal's smooth surface. The stone felt warm, almost alive, and she could swear she felt a heartbeat thrumming through its structure. Queen Lyrelith positioned her own hands beside Sarah's, their fingers barely touching. "The Neuralink will manifest gradually," the Queen explained. "First, emotions, then surface thoughts. Finally, complete mental unity." She paused, her dark eyes searching Sarah's face. "It cannot be undone. I understand." Sarah forced steel into her voice despite the fear gnawing at her resolve. The crystal began to glow brighter. Sarah felt a strange tingling sensation travel up her arms, spreading through her nervous system like warm mercury. The chamber around her seemed to grow distant, as if she were viewing it through water. Then the emotions hit. A tsunami of alien feelings crashed through Sarah's consciousness. Wonder at the humans' courage, desperate hope for her people's future, ancient loneliness that had shaped millennia of solitary rule, fear of the intimacy about to be forced upon both of them. The emotional cocktail was overwhelming, beautiful, and terrifying. "I feel your confusion," Queen Lyrillith whispered, her voice carrying new harmonics that resonated through Sarah's mind. "And your determination, your willingness to sacrifice for others," Sarah gasped as her own emotions reflected back at her through the alien consciousness. Her military discipline, her protective instincts, her hidden fear of inadequacy, all laid bare before the Zephyrian monarch. The crystal pulsed again, and suddenly Sarah could hear thoughts that weren't her own. "This brave human warrior who saved my life, she doesn't understand what she's surrendering for. Duty's sake. How can I explain that the bonding isn't loss, but transformation?" Her thoughts are so bright, so direct. No hidden agendas, no political calculation. Just honest service and courage. Perhaps this union will be a blessing, rather than burden. Sarah tried to form thoughts in response, but the process felt clumsy and strange. "Can you hear me?" "Yes," came the wordless reply, accompanied by warm mental laughter. "You're adapting quickly to our connection." The chamber faded further as their minds drew closer together. Sarah felt herself becoming something larger, more complex, neither fully human nor Zephyrian, but something entirely new. The massive crystal at the chamber's heart pulsed with brilliant light as Sarah and Queen Lyrillith pressed their hands against its surface. Sarah braced herself for the complete neural fusion she'd been warned about, the final step that would lock their consciousness together permanently. Instead, the crystal cracked. A hairline fracture appeared beneath their joined hands, spreading slowly across the stone's perfect surface. The assembled council gasped, their ceremonial composure shattering along with the ancient artifact. "Impossible!" Councillor Vexakai breathed, his dark eyes wide with shock. "The bonding crystal has remained intact for 3,000 years. Queen Lyrillith stared at the spreading crack, her mental presence suddenly sharp with alarm in Sarah's mind. This has never happened before. The crystal is supposed to facilitate the neural link, not break. Sarah felt the partial connection between them wavering, their shared consciousness pulling apart like a fraying rope. The emotions and surface thoughts they'd briefly shared began to fade, leaving only echoes of alien sentiment. "What does this mean?" Sarah asked aloud, her voice carrying through both the physical chamber and the remaining mental link. "Ancient law does not account for bonding crystal failure," another council member stammered. "The ceremony is incomplete." The crack widened with a sharp crystalline chime. Light leaked from the fracture, brilliant and somehow alive. Sarah felt the energy washing over her, through her, changing something fundamental in her cellular structure. "The crystal is choosing," Queen Lyrillith said, wonder coloring her mental voice. "It's not breaking, it's adapting." The fissure spread completely across the stone's diameter, but instead of shattering, the two halves began to glow with different colors. Sarah's side pulsed with warm amber light, while Queen Lyrillith's emanated cool silver radiance. Councillor Vexai stepped closer, his expression shifting from shock to awe. "The crystal has split to create separate bonds. You remain yourselves, but connected through the shared stone." Sarah felt her mind clearing as the overwhelming neural pressure lifted. The alien emotions and thoughts receded to a manageable level, present but not overwhelming. She could sense Queen Lyrillith's consciousness, like a warm presence at the edge of awareness, close enough for communication, but not the complete mental fusion they'd expected. "Can you feel this?" The Queen's mental voice was clearer now, less invasive. "Yes, but it's different. We're still ourselves." Queen Lyrillith lifted her hands from the crystal, studying the twin amber and silver lights pulsing in harmony. Sister minds rather than merged consciousness. The crystal has preserved our individual identities while creating a bridge between them. "Is the bonding valid?" Sarah asked the council, hope rising in her chest. She'd accepted the necessity of losing herself for her people's benefit, but perhaps the ancient laws had found another way. Counselor Vexhai consulted urgently with his colleagues, their musical language filling the chamber with rapid discussion. After several tense moments, he turned back to the altar. "The crystal's judgment is absolute," he declared solemnly. "You are bonded, but as equals rather than merged beings. The alliance is sealed, but your minds remain your own." Relief flooded through both Sarah and Queen Lyreleth, their shared emotion visible in the synchronized pulsing of their crystal halves. "What happens now?" Sarah asked. Queen Lyreleth smiled, the first genuine expression of joy Sarah had seen from the alien monarch. "Now we learn to be partners instead of the same person. Our worlds are united, but our individuality preserved." The crystal's twin lights settled into a steady glow, amber and silver reflecting off the chamber walls like captured starlight. Sarah touched the stone once more, feeling warmth and connection without the terrifying loss of self she'd prepared for. "The marriage alliance stands," Counselor Vexhai announced to the chamber. "But you have become something new in our history, bonded individuals rather than a single entity." Sarah looked at her new partner, seeing wonder and relief in the alien queen's dark eyes. Their mental connection hummed with possibilities, strong enough for deep communication, but gentle enough to preserve who they each were. The ancient laws had found a way to honor tradition while embracing change, creating something unprecedented. A partnership between minds rather than a merging of souls. And in the distance, Sarah sensed the first stirrings of the Hegemony Coalition's alarm as news of the successful bonding reached their spies. The game was far from over. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened within hours of the bonding ceremony's completion. Sarah stood beside Queen Lyreleth at the chamber's center, their shared crystal hovering between them in a specially constructed field generator. The twin lights of amber and silver pulsed gently, a visible symbol of the unprecedented alliance between Earth and Zephyr Prime. Representatives from 47 worlds filled the amphitheater-style chamber, their various forms of alien life creating a tapestry of scales, feathers, exoskeletons, and bioengineered adaptations. At the chamber's highest tier sat the Hegemony Coalition delegation, their obsidian-black environmental suits revealing nothing of their true nature. "The human Zephyrian bonding creates an illegal power concentration," declared Ambassador Kath of the Hegemony, his synthesized voice cutting through the chamber's ambient hum. "This marriage alliance threatens the delicate balance of our sector." Sarah felt Queen Lyreleth's calm determination through their mental link, steadying her own nerves. The political firestorm had begun before they'd even left the bonding chamber, with emergency communications flooding in from across known space. "The balance you speak of has allowed the hegemony to expand unchecked for 2 decades, Queen Lyreleth replied, her voice carrying the authority of ancient bloodlines. "Our union creates stability, not threat." Counselor Prime Valdris, the session's moderator, gestured for order as murmurs filled the chamber. His crystalline body refracted the chamber's lighting into rainbow patterns across the walls. "The question before this assembly is whether the human Zephyrian alliance violates the expansion limitation accords." Sarah stepped forward, drawing on her military bearing. "Honored delegates, Earth seeks only peaceful cooperation and mutual defense. Our bonding with Zephyr Prime represents the same diplomatic ties your own worlds have forged through treaty and trade. Treaties can be dissolved," Ambassador Keth countered. "Neural bonding cannot. You have created a permanent power block that threatens every independent world in this sector." The accusation hung in the air like a weapon. Sarah felt the weight of dozens of alien gazes, some curious, others openly hostile. The future of human expansion into galactic civilization balanced on the edge of political catastrophe. "If the hegemony fears peaceful alliance," Queen Lyreleth said, her silver temple markings pulsing rapidly, "perhaps they should explain why they orchestrated yesterday's assassination attempt." Shocked gasps erupted from multiple delegations. Ambassador Keth's environmental suit remained motionless, but Sarah noticed the slight adjustment in his stance that suggested combat readiness. "Baseless accusations," he replied. "The hegemony had no involvement in the attack on your majesty." Queen Lyreleth raised her hand, and a holographic display materialized above the chamber's center. Security footage showed the assassin's approach, enhanced to reveal a small device hidden in his ceremonial robes. "Hegemony Quantum Transmitter," she announced as the image zoomed in on the alien technology. Our investigation found encoded communications between the attacker and coalition operatives. The evidence sparked chaos throughout the chamber. Delegations that had been neutral moments before began voicing angry protests. The hegemony's expansionist policies had threatened many worlds, but proof of direct assassination attempts elevated the crisis to military levels. Ambassador Keth stood abruptly. Even if true, this changes nothing. The human Zephyrian alliance remains illegal under galactic law. Does it? Sarah asked, her voice cutting through the noise. The expansion limitation accords prohibit conquest and forced annexation. Our bonding was voluntary, witnessed, and conducted according to Zephyrian law. Where is the violation? Counselor Prime Valdris reviewed his holographic legal database, his crystalline features reflecting deep consideration. Captain Chen raises valid points. The accords do not specifically address marriage alliances between sovereign worlds, because such alliances were considered impossible between different species, Ambassador Keth insisted. The law assumes biological compatibility. Sarah felt a warm pulse of approval from Queen Lyrilla through their mental link. Their preparation for this moment was paying off. The bonding crystal adapted to create compatibility where none existed before, Queen Lyrillith explained. We are not the same species attempting unnatural fusion. We are allied minds working in concert while maintaining our distinct identities. The crystal between them pulsed brighter, as if responding to their words. Several delegations leaned forward, studying the unprecedented artifact with fascination. I propose a recess for legal review, Counselor Prime Valdris announced. This alliance raises questions that require careful consideration. As the session dissolved into smaller discussions, Sarah felt a chill of warning through her bond with Queen Lyral. The hegemony delegation was withdrawing quickly, their movements suggesting urgent communication with their home command. They're planning something. Queen Lyrolith's mental voice carried grim certainty. The legal challenge was just a distraction. Sarah's hand moved instinctively to her sidearm. Military response? Worse. They can't break our alliance through law or politics, so they'll try to prove it makes us vulnerable. Through the chamber's massive viewport, Sarah watched 3 hegemony warships drop out of quantum space, their weapon systems already charging for attack. The first plasma volley from the hegemony warships struck the Galactic Council Station's shields with devastating force. Sarah threw herself against Queen Lyrillith as the chamber shook, their shared crystal spinning wildly in its field generator. Emergency klaxons wailed through the station as delegates scrambled for evacuation pods. They're targeting the station directly, Sarah said, her military training taking over. This isn't just an attack on our alliance. They're trying to decapitate galactic leadership. Queen Lyrillith's mental presence blazed with cold fury. The hegemony has declared war on the council itself. Our bonding was merely the excuse they needed. Through their Neuralink, Sarah felt the alien queen accessing Zephyr Prime's fleet command frequencies. Quantum communications crackled with encoded battle instructions as the Zephyrian military responded to the attack. How long until reinforcements arrive? Sarah asked, helping evacuate wounded delegates from the chamber's lower levels. 17 minutes for the nearest ships. But the hegemony flotilla includes a dreadnought-class vessel. This station cannot withstand a sustained assault. The station's defensive turrets opened fire, their concentrated energy beams lancing out toward the attacking warships. The hegemony vessels responded with coordinated bombardment, their advanced shielding absorbing the defensive fire while their own weapons carved through the station's armor plating. Sarah's tactical mind processed the battle's flow. They're not trying to destroy the station immediately. This is a demonstration of power, showing the galaxy what happens to those who oppose them. The demonstration ends when they've made their point, Queen Lyrillith replied grimly. Then they eliminate all witnesses. Ambassador Harrison stumbled toward them through the chaos, his diplomatic composure shattered. Captain, Earth vessels are moving to assist, but they're 12 hours out. We need immediate evacuation. No. Sarah's voice carried absolute conviction. If we run, the hegemony wins. They prove that our alliance makes us weak, that bonding creates vulnerability instead of strength. Queen Lyrillith turned to study Sarah's face, their mental connection humming with shared understanding. You want to fight? I want to show 47 worlds that human-Zephyrian partnership is stronger than hegemony aggression. Sarah moved to the chamber's emergency command console, her fingers flying over the interface. Can your people coordinate with human tactical systems? Through our bond, yes. But Sarah, we're talking about a handful of vessels against a hegemony battle group. Sometimes a handful is enough. The station shuddered again as another plasma bombardment struck its weakening shields. On the tactical display, Sarah watched Earth's light cruiser ESS Determination emerge from quantum space, followed by 2 Zephyrian destroyers that had been closer than initially calculated. "Patch me through to all Allied vessels," Sarah commanded, her voice carrying across open frequencies to both human and Zephyrian crews. "Captain Chen to Allied fleet," she began, her words being broadcast simultaneously to Earth naval crews and alien warriors she'd never met. "The hegemony believes our alliance makes us weak. They think bonding different species creates vulnerability rather than strength. Today we prove them wrong." Through her link with Queen Lyreleth, Sarah felt the alien queen adding her own commands to Zephyrian ships, their shared consciousness allowing unprecedented coordination between the mixed fleet. "Human vessels implement pattern Delta 7, Sarah continued, her tactical instructions flowing through both her voice and Queen Lyreleth's mental commands to alien crews. "Zephyrian destroyers execute quantum disruption on my mark." The combined fleet moved as a single entity, human adaptability merging with Zephyrian precision. The Earth cruiser's kinetic weapons provided covering fire, while the alien destroyers used their quantum drives to create spatial distortions that disrupted hegemony targeting systems. "Impossible!" Ambassador Keth's voice crackled over emergency frequencies as his forces found themselves outmaneuvered by vessels they should have easily overwhelmed. "Their coordination exceeds all projected parameters." Sarah smiled grimly as she watched the tactical display. The hegemony had expected human and Zephyrian forces to fight as separate entities, their different technologies and doctrines creating exploitable weaknesses. Instead, Sarah and Queen Lyreleth's Neuralink had created something unprecedented, a hybrid command structure that combined the best of both species' military. "The demonstration is complete," Queen Lyreleth announced, across all frequencies, her voice carrying queenly authority. "Withdraw your forces, or face the consequences of attacking sovereign worlds." The hegemony dreadnought's main batteries swiveled toward the station, charging for a killing blow. But before they could fire, quantum distortions erupted around the massive vessel as 3 more Zephyrian ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel, their exotic weapon systems overwhelming the dreadnought's shields. Ambassador Keth's forces found themselves surrounded, outmaneuvered, and facing an enemy that fought with impossible unity. "This isn't over," he transmitted as his vessels began their retreat. "The galaxy will learn the truth about your unnatural alliance." But as 47 worlds watched the impossible victory unfold, a different truth was taking root. That the marriage of human determination and Zephyrian wisdom had created something far stronger than either species could achieve alone. The emergency session that reconvened after the hegemony retreat felt different from its predecessor. Delegates who had questioned the human-Zephyrian alliance now saw it as the force that had saved their lives. The chamber bore scorch marks from the attack, serving as a permanent reminder of the hegemony's aggression. Sarah stood beside Queen Lyreleth at the chamber's center, their shared crystal pulsing with calm amber and silver light. The bond between them had evolved during the battle, their mental connection deepening through shared command decisions and mutual trust under fire. "The events we have witnessed today require careful consideration," Counselor Prime Valdris announced, his crystalline form reflecting the chamber's emergency lighting. "The Hegemony Coalition has violated the most fundamental laws of galactic civilization by attacking this neutral station." Ambassador Keth's replacement, a newer delegate whose environmental suit bore fresh coalition insignia, spoke with carefully controlled hostility. "The hegemony maintains that the human-Zephyrian bonding represents an existential threat to galactic stability. Our response was proportionate to the danger." Several delegates erupted in angry protests. Counselor Prime Valdris called for order as Sarah stepped forward. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice carrying the confidence of proven leadership. "The battle you witnessed demonstrates the opposite of what the hegemony claims. Our alliance didn't destabilize galactic politics, it stabilized them by creating a force capable of opposing aggression. Queen Lyreleth added her support, their mental link allowing perfect coordination of their arguments. For 2 decades, the hegemony has expanded unchecked because each world stood alone. Today, we've proven that cooperation between species creates strength that no single threat can overcome. The crystal between them pulsed brighter, its twin lights seeming to respond to their unity of purpose. Several delegates studied the artifact with newfound interest. The bonding procedure itself requires examination, declared Representative Thex of the Endorian Collective, their feathered crest rising with curiosity. This Neuralink appears to offer unprecedented advantages for military coordination. If other species could adapt the process, the bonding crystal is unique to Zephyrian culture, Queen Lyraleth replied carefully. But the principles it represents, trust, shared purpose, mutual sacrifice, these can be achieved through conventional diplomacy as well. They weren't offering to share their specific bonding technology, but they were suggesting that other worlds could achieve similar cooperation through traditional alliance structures. The question before this assembly, Councillor Prime Valdris said, his voice carrying formal weight, is whether to recognize the human Zephyrian alliance as legitimate under galactic law, and whether to impose sanctions on the Hegemony Coalition for their unprovoked attack. The vote was swift and decisive. 39 worlds recognized the alliance's legitimacy, with only 5 abstentions and 3 votes in opposition, all from coalition-aligned systems. The sanctions against the hegemony passed by an even wider margin. As the session concluded, Sarah felt a deep sense of satisfaction through her bond with Queen Lyreleth. They had achieved something unprecedented, a marriage alliance that strengthened both their worlds while opening new possibilities for galactic cooperation. "What happens now?" Sarah asked as they prepared to leave the council chamber. "Now we go home," Queen Lyreleth replied, both aloud and through their mental connection. "We have 2 worlds to protect, and an alliance to build into something that can withstand whatever the hegemony sends against us next." Sarah nodded, understanding the weight of responsibility they now carried. Their accidental bonding had become the foundation for a new kind of partnership between species, one based on mutual respect and shared purpose rather than dominance or submission. The crystal between them pulsed once more, its amber and silver lights reflecting off the scarred chamber walls like a promise of better things to come. They had begun as strangers thrown together by circumstance and ancient law, but they would continue as partners, equals, and guardians of a peace they had helped to forge. As they walked toward their transport, Sarah's tactical mind was already working on defensive strategies and alliance-building opportunities. Through their mental link, she could feel Queen Lyreleth engaging in similar thoughts about technological exchange and cultural integration. The hegemony had wanted to prove that their bonding created weakness. Instead, they had helped forge something stronger than either human or Zephyrian could have achieved alone. A partnership that would reshape the galactic balance of power for generations to come. The marriage proposal that had begun with a simple act of protection was complete. But the alliance it represented was only just beginning to show its true potential. And somewhere in the depths of space, the hegemony was learning that they had created their own greatest enemy by forcing 2 worlds to discover how powerful they could be together.